Hello, good morning. I am Stephanie Purrier-Helling, founder of SPH Services, leading people and teams to success. Welcoming you back to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview with my special guest today, Monica Begg. Let me tell you a little bit about Monica. So if you don't know Monica yet, she is a seasoned multifamily professional with over 2 decades of experience driving excellence in operations, training, and team development across the industry. As a founding partner of IAS Multifamily, a certified career coach, CAM and CALP instructor, and a passionate advocate for leadership growth and merging team development, Monica is known for her heart-led approach and deep industry knowledge. She has been actively involved with the National Apartment Association for many years, currently serving on the NAA Operations Committee and the Mental Health Subcommittee, where she contributes to shaping the future of multifamily operations and championing the well-being of industry professionals. Monica is also a past president of the Upper State Apartment Association and has proudly served on numerous local and national committees throughout her career. She currently serves as the South Carolina Apartment Association Education Chair and the chair of the City Advisory Board for Entryway in Greenville, South Carolina. Beyond her professional achievements, Monica is a cancer survivor, a grieving mother who turned pain into purpose, and a true servant leader. Her journey through personal adversity has fueled her mission to inspire, mentor, and empower others, helping them rise in their careers and thrive in life. With a legacy of impact and a voice of resilience, Monica continues to lead with passion, purpose, and the unwavering belief that character comes first. Everything else can be taught. Monica, I am so glad to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
RPM Careers Week. So I love that we are kicking off the first day of RPM Careers Week with you.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I was thinking, when we scheduled for today, this is the first day and it's such a great week. There's a lot going on and I'm just really excited for a fun-filled week and to celebrate everyone in our industry. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. It's my honor and pleasure. All right. So let's jump into some questions that I have for you. And so what I wanted to talk to you about today is sort of a follow-up to a lot of the conversations that we've had, right? We're both really passionate about transformational leadership and helping others and to, make them better and to add value. So I want to talk to you a little bit about transformational leadership, leading change, and resiliency, both building resilient teams as well as your own personal resiliency. So my first question for you is about leadership. So your leadership has inspired teams to push beyond perceived limits. What personal philosophy or experience has shaped your ability to lead in this way?
Well, a lot of my leadership philosophy comes from a full life of lessons, real life hard lessons. And I think that builds the character. And, with me, a lot of people don't know this, but at 17, I became a mother. I was a single mother for a while. And, realizing at that moment, you have a choice to make. And what's it going to be? Are you going to fall into a statistic, or are you going to make something with your life? So I believe that the life lessons, the things that have happened in my life have made me be a better leader, a leader to the point that I lead by believing in people. I believe in people before they fully believe in themselves. And I think that is so important to let someone know that, there's an opportunity and that they have something that they may not see themselves, but you see it in them. And, that's really, I'm just very unwavering at coaching them and making people feel worthy. I believe that a lot of times, people give up because maybe they're not experiencing, and I don't mean you have to tell everyone, good job, here's here's a prize, because I know that in our culture today, everyone gets a trophy, everyone gets a prize. And I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that let people realize that they're doing something good, that they can achieve what they want. And that's how I lead.
I love that so much. And, I too, I've always been in the people business in some way, shape, or form back to when I was a teenager, right? And I think that, helping others to see maybe what they don't see is so important. And, as a coach, I have my own coaches, both professional and personal coaches in my life, because I firmly believe that every coach needs a coach. And personal development and growth and leadership development is not a destination. It's a lifelong journey. But, we all have blind spots, right? And we all have areas that we don't necessarily see. But when we have a coach, they can help us really uncover that and see what we don't. And I also loved what you said about worthiness. And so, you came to Live to Lead in February, which I hosted in Atlanta, which was great. And one of the speakers, John Maxwell, so he referenced worthiness, right? And he referenced a book called Worthy that Jamie Kern Lima wrote. And she actually spoke at our International Maxwell Conference a year ago, March. She had recently launched her book. I bought it. It comes with a workbook. I've actually gifted it to several people, but it's called Worthy. And it's such a great message about really claiming and recognizing your worth, because we're all worthy. But that's the number one thing that holds people back, is not really seeing and owning their worth. So I love that you mentioned that. That's awesome.
I think that's so important. I even, as on a personal level, my grandchildren, I teach them that. I have one of my granddaughters, I can look at her and say, now, who are you? And she'll say, I am beautiful, I am strong, and I am worthy. And she's 11 now, and she was about 3 when I got her started that way. And I want her to always know that. I think it's really important for all of us to realize our worth.
That is awesome. Well, what's the movie and the book that reminds me of? I'm drawing a blank for a moment, but You Is Kind, You Is Smart.
You know what I mean? Yes, I do know. Oh, The Help.
Yes,
The Help. Yes, The Help.
So good. Love that. Okay, so my next question for you is about emotional intelligence, which, I love that over the last decade or so, people have put more of a focus on this, because I think emotional intelligence is just as important as, your IQ, your EQ, and your IQ. And sometimes it's actually more crucial that you're tapping into your EQ. So for you, how has emotional intelligence played a role in your success as a leader? And what advice would you give to aspiring leaders looking to strengthen this skill?
Well, emotional intelligence has really been a cornerstone of how I lead. Whether it's, navigating like a high pressure business ventures or things going on at a property or in my work, guiding teams. I know one thing I like to do is guide teams that are in the middle of transition, like an acquisition or merger where 2 teams are coming together. I love opportunities to go in and merge those teams together. And so I think emotional intelligence is huge during that time, because I have to look at everybody and how they're feeling, what they're thinking, where they're coming from. And sometimes you just have to lead with your heart and with purpose and slow down and listen. And I think that is very important. And it's definitely been beneficial in those times I was talking about, when I'm helping companies to merge that way. But I would say, for aspiring leaders, pay attention. Again, slow down and listen. Notice body language, tone of voice. There's a lot of unspoken cues, and it's really important to be aware of that when things are going on, because you can have a great team merge together, but if you're not aware and you're not emotionally involved, and when I say that, I mean just having an understanding and some empathy to see what is going on, you could lose some really good people. They could walk out that door because you did not see what's not fitting. Because the way it was here and the way it was over here, and when you bring that together, there's going to be some of the same, but it's not going to be all the same. And it's always hard to navigate change. So I do believe that staying open to feedback and having a heart for the work.
Absolutely.
That's what guides me.
I love that so much. And that reminds me of, a saying that we used at my former company. We had a big leadership meeting, and one of our speakers came, and our theme of the conference was heads, hands, hearts. And really reinforcing that it takes a combination of all three, right? Using your head, your intelligence, using your hands, so rolling your sleeves up and getting right in there with your team in the trenches, and then always focusing on being a heart-centered leader. And I think that can take not only you as a leader much further, but when your team knows that you have compassion and you see them as individuals, that can go such a long way. And we all, we're humans. We all want to be somewhere where we feel like we belong, we feel like we're appreciated, and we feel like we're seen. So I absolutely love your philosophy. Thank you for sharing.
Many years ago, when I was much younger, my children were in middle school, and I was a substitute teacher for probably 7 or 8 years. And I remember the principal there telling me, he had called me into work, and he was using me regularly because people were out. And a conversation came up about, how does this work when so many people call out? These are your teachers. This is your staff at school. And he said, I believe in the 3 F's: faith, family, and finance. And if you handle them in that order, everything's going to work out. And I just thought that stuck with me that many years ago. And I've always thought about that. And it's true. If you handle things and look at people, as a human being, and not always look at it as the numbers will roll in, because your people are going to stay and they're going to put the work in.
Absolutely. And, in the work that I do for leadership development, I like to reference a lot of statistics, right? So I was hosting a webinar for a client late last week, and it's a pre-webinar that I do before people complete their Clifton Strengths Assessment. So I was sharing a lot of statistics, and the statistics back all of that up, what you were just saying. So if we focus more on the people and developing the people and supporting them and making them feel like they belong, they're supported, that they have opportunities for development, not only are those team members going to feel more satisfied and a greater sense of belonging, but they're going to be more productive, they're going to work harder, and it's going to increase the bottom line, and the company will be more profitable. The statistics back that up. So love what you just said. All right. So my next question, leadership comes, as we know, in many different forms, right? There's many types of leaders, but I want to think about diversity in leadership for a moment. So how has diversity in leadership, including gender diversity, shaped the way organizations evolve and succeed? And when I think about gender diversity, specifically women in leadership, we've seen a lot of women advance over the years and break some of the glass ceilings that existed previously. And so, as a woman in leadership, how has this shaped the way, in your opinion, organizations have evolved and succeeded?
I'll say, as a woman, I think a woman in leadership, it brings a balance. A woman brings a balance to the strategy and the emotional depth of things. And I think that it is realized more than it was many years ago. And enough women are coming together, and it's the power in numbers, and we're lifting each other up. And I think that is wonderful, because I love to see people succeed. And maybe I wanted this, but you got it. But I'm so happy for you, because I love to see people succeed. And I love that diversity there. But I also love to see the men that have gotten into on the property side. When I first got into property management, there was not that many men other than the maintenance. You did not see a lot of male managers or even the regional managers, but I'm seeing that grow too. And I think coming together, lifting each other up and seeing that we can, that women can bust those ceilings and can be anything they want to be. But then you've also got, the males in here that are helping to grow the business and grow our industry. And it's transforming teams and the culture, by having that balance, the balance of people. I believe the leadership should reflect the communities that you're serving. I think that if it does, it'll create a trust, and that's really important. You've got the inspiration, the equity, the trust. You've got people just see the community as who they are, and a diverse group in your office. I love that. I think it's great. I think talent is definitely very important because we have to be able to do the job, but as we bring all that in, and as, like I talked about, attitude is what's so important. Character is so important. We can train the rest and have that diverse group and lift everybody up so that they can be all that they can be.
I agree. So I had several of these interviews last Friday when we were talking about, the importance, obviously, of talent and skill and knowledge and experience, but you can train those things. What you can't train is attitude, right?
That's right.
What you can't train is how someone chooses to show up, whether they have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Now, you can enhance that, right? You can provide learning and development to further support that growth in terms of attitude and culture and mindset. But the person needs to be coachable, and they need to come with a baseline of a positive mental attitude and a growth mindset, right? And I have a friend of mine who used to be a consultant, and we've spoken together, and she had this saying that said, all you get when you train a dud is a trained dud. Not that we should ever call anyone a dud, but if you choose to have the attitude, a dud mindset, right? A fixed mindset or negative mindset, no amount of training in the world is going to fix that, because you have to be open to adopting that right outlook. So I love what you said about attitude.
And I'm working with some schools, and, because what I noticed, when I was doing the staffing side, I noticed that a lot of people come into interviews and still the mindset of, if it's good character, I can train them. But when they don't take their eyes out of their phone and they just look up every little bit while you're interviewing them, I've noticed that people don't know how to interview, and they're not aware of workplace decorum and what they need to do. So I've been working in some of the schools to help the 11th and 12th graders coming out, with some interview coaching and letting them know what they need. And you've got some good kids in there, but they're so stuck in what they do every day, and they're on the social media and on the games and stuff. They don't make eye contact. So we've been learning about that, because I think we've got some great people that we'll be able to bring into our industry. We just have to coach them now.
Absolutely. So when I was having a conversation with Mindy Price on the You Deserve More podcast last Friday, we also talked a lot about attitude. And she said, I love the quote by Zig Ziglar, your attitude rather than your aptitude determines your altitude. I also love that quote. And I shared with Mindy that my drill team instructor in high school, back when I was 15 and 16, used to say that all the time, partially to get us to do higher high kicks, right? But that stuck with me, that quote. And I believe in that so much. Your attitude rather than your aptitude determines your altitude, because you can be the smartest person in the room or the smartest person on the team. But if you don't have a winning attitude, you're not going to get very far, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you some additional questions geared towards leading change. And so, you've obviously led teams through change, and you referenced that earlier. But what are some key lessons that you've learned about overcoming resistance to change? Because there always will be, right? There is a predictable cycle to change, and change can be scary, particularly when it feels like a change that person didn't get to choose, right? And so naturally, the human reaction is going to be some level of resistance. So how do you help people overcome that resistance or fear and ensure a smoother transition?
I remember that as much as I want to say I'm open to change, I love change, I don't love it. You know, I have fear of change. I know whether I show it or not sometimes internally, I'm probably a little resistant to some change because I want to understand it. And this makes me think of Mindy when I say this. I want to understand the why. And if you teach people the why, the fear will go away. They're not going to be as afraid of change if they understand why they need to change. If they understand they're not losing control. It's the unknown that scares everyone. So having an open conversation and, I know this worked out great this way. I know it's worked out great other ways, but as a team, we want to try this and we want to all be open to it and explain why this is going to work for us and why we want to try it. If it doesn't work, then we can look at something else, but we need to evolve. We need to do things differently. And having that clear communication, always having some compassion and clarity, I think it'll take the fear away and it will enable the trust where your teams and people you're working with will understand more of why you're doing something. And, once that fear goes away, then I believe that the resistance will start going away.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there again, there is a cycle to change, right? There's that emotional cycle that people go through, but there are 8 steps to effectively implementing change. And so it can be done and it can be done well. But what's interesting, and I shared this with a couple people on Friday, is that over 75% of organizations fail in change initiatives. And those are proven statistics. And the reason that they do is lack of effective communication, lack of explaining the why, lack of understanding that there is a predictable cycle to change and that there will be some resistance. So what are you going to do to help people through that, right?
And I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say, like, the communication piece is so huge. And so, like you mentioned, including the why, but it also needs to be 2-direction communication. It can't just be one way where the leaders are saying, we're doing this, here's why, and that's it. You've got to invite people to be part of the conversation and enlist champions of change to partner with you in that process instead of forcing it upon people.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Walk beside them. Not just telling them what they need to do and showing them the way. Walk beside them and let them see together how it can be.
I love it. Okay, so my next question. So as a leader, how do you balance creating stability for your team while also embracing disruption as an opportunity for growth?
Oh, okay. Well, so you can, as long as the leadership, I think, as long as you're grounded in leadership, there can be both. There can be some stability and disruption together, but you've got to be grounded in that leadership and be consistent, with showing up, with your integrity, with transparency and support. And at the same time, if you encourage curiosity and adaptability, just like, we were talking about a minute ago, letting them ask questions, having people, want to be part of it and understand the why, framing the disruption like as an opportunity. I think that helps. It's not a threat. It's actually an opportunity to learn and to grow, and inviting them in to see that and be part of that. I think I answered that.
You did. I love what you just said, and I'm going to put that on the screen too. But I agree. Integrity, be transparent and support them. I love encouraging curiosity. And then what you just said is huge. Framing the disruption as an opportunity. Again, going back to communication and really helping them understand the why. I think another thing that's important is also helping them understand, or at least acknowledging, hey, there's going to be parts of this that are going to be messy. Change is messy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be parts of this that are going to be uncomfortable because you're maybe learning something new or trying something new, or all of the above, right? And oftentimes, if it's a technology initiative, for example, sometimes it's going to feel worse before it feels better. But acknowledging that and saying, hey, we're going to go through this. It's going to be a little bit tough, but here's what it's going to look like at the end. And this is why we're doing it, because it's actually, after we get through the messy stuff, it's actually going to make your job easier. It's going to make things more efficient. It's going to help free up some of your time so that you can focus on X, Y, Z. And so really helping them understand. But I think what happens sometimes is and it's all with positive intent, but changes are framed as it's going to be amazing without acknowledging all of the messy parts that do come along with change. And so I think while we certainly want to frame it positively, we also have to acknowledge, hey, parts of this are going to be a little messy, but I'm right here beside you. Like you said, walk beside them. We're going to get through it together. I want to ask for feedback when that happens, because part of it is I want you to try to break this, because that's how we learn what we need to refine. But at the end of it, we're going to get through this together, and it is going to make us better. Whatever that end goal is huge, right?
And they can look at it as a platform for personal development, and just keeping someone as the calm in the chaos.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love that.
Lots of good stuff.
Right. Lots of good stuff. Okay. So my next question is organizations thrive. And we talked a little bit about diversity earlier, but organizations thrive when they embrace diverse perspectives as well. So diversity of thought is hugely important, right? How have you seen inclusive leadership contribute to successful transformations?
Well, I think I see that all the time, because when you include people from different backgrounds, roles, people who've had different experiences in life, you learn from each other. And when you include those diverse things, even when I talk about, and you and I both have things in our life that everyone has, that you had to make a decision, is this going to break me, or am I going to keep going? And when you open yourself up to the diverse things in other people's lives, where they've come from, what their jobs have been, then I believe that you become richer together, as knowing each other. Your solutions become richer. Your leadership becomes richer. Your team becomes richer. And having a unified culture, including people, and we can go and we can talk about all kinds of diversity, because it can have to do with a medical issue. It can be with, you have children at home, you don't have children at home. It can be, race. It could be, what neighborhood you live in. I mean, there's just so many things that it can be. But understanding each other and bringing everyone to the table together, we all have to eat, and we all need a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I think that I have been in situations where I've been included in places that I did not think I would be. But those places and that inclusion has gotten me to where I am today. And I strive to pay that forward.
I
think in leadership, you need to do that. Sometimes people aren't going to speak up. I am one to sit back and listen. I have all this stuff going through my head, like, oh, this is what I want to say about that. And this is what I want to say about that. But my mouth is closed. It's just not popping out. And I love when somebody says, you look like you've got something on your mind. What are you thinking? Because that pulls me out, and I'm better than I was at it. Okay. I'm better than, for a long time, I never would speak up. And I love that someone notices and gives you an opportunity. And I try to give that opportunity to people too, no matter what it is, because I got a seat at the table because somebody recognized.
Yeah.
And I want to do that for others.
I think that's awesome. But I also think there's responsibilities on both sides, right? So
Mhm.
as leaders or as coaches, speakers, et cetera,
Mhm.
facilitators, we do have a responsibility to recognize when like when someone's wheels are turning and they're kind of deep in thought, right?
Mhm.
Um, to create opportunities for people to have a voice, right?
Mhm.
Because if you don't, it's going to be the same, outgoing people who always speak up. And that's great that they do. Um, and I'm a DISC consultant, right? So only 3% of the population are Ds, which I'm a DI. 11% are Is. So that's, 14% total. The rest of the population, they're reserved. They tend to be reserved. And so 69% are S's, steady, which they don't typically speak up. That's 69% of the population. And then 17% are C's, conscientious. So again, tend to be more reserved, deep in thought. And if we don't create opportunities to allow people to speak up, then we're not getting all of the perspectives, kind of going back to diversity.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, as I coach people and try to help people take their unique strengths or preferences and show up more effectively in the world,
Mhm.
I do coach people who tend to have preferences that are a little bit more reserved to raise your hand, to use your voice, to step into rooms that maybe you weren't invited into, but
Mhm.
not closed. You
Right.
can go, strengthen your bravery a little bit,
Mhm.
get outside your comfort zone a little bit, because you do have something to share. And I think that also goes hand in hand with that whole worthy piece, right? And
Mhm.
so I want to help people feel more worthy and help them find their voice and help them enter rooms, even if they weren't invited, because you don't always have to be invited to use your voice and go into a
Mhm.
room. But as leaders, we do need to make sure we're inviting, right? And
Mhm.
that we are
Absolutely.
allowing people opportunity to speak up.
Mhm.
And this is a whole nother conversation that we could schedule separately, honestly, and we should probably do that. Yeah.
There's so
Uh,
many conversations.
oh my gosh, so
Yes.
many. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about resiliency,
Mhm.
about building resilient teams as well as personal resiliency as a leader. So, how have you cultivated resilience within your teams, and what strategies have been most effective in keeping morale strong during really challenging or difficult times?
I have definitely lived a life of resiliency, and I brought that in any team that I've worked with. I bring that in because it took a long time to learn that it's okay to not be okay. And I know I hear that a lot now, but I never, for a long time, I didn't really understand that because I thought, no, we have to all be okay. But you don't have to. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a thought a certain way or not to understand, but to dig deeper. So I want people to understand that let's talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to say, I need to step away. I need some time. Let's figure out together what we can do and how it's going to be better. Um, and don't put people in a box. I am a big one to say, as a matter of fact, not long ago, I um, uh, was dealing with an employee who was absolutely wonderful and in so many ways, but the position that she took was not really what she thought it was going to be, and she didn't love it. I mean, she could do it; she was great at it, but it became sad. I would say sad every day. Like she really got to where she didn't want to come to work. And this was an employee that was always there 30 minutes early, sometimes an hour early, just because, and ready when it was time to start work, would stay late, would do whatever was necessary. And you could see that something was happening. And this employee had did not really have the opportunity, but another position became available and was not even offered an opportunity to interview for it.
Mm.
The next week, that employee put her notice in. And it was because she was not getting fed, basically. And that's what I'll call it. But sometimes you have to be resilient, even in those things. And you have to say, okay, Did I speak up enough? Did I let it be known this is what I want? Should I stay a little longer and see what happens? But in this case, she did the right thing because she's in a wonderful place now. And I do appreciate her recognizing that. But I believe that you can't put people in that box. Mm-hmm. And just because you're hired for this, you may be so much better at something else. And I'll tell you, I had no experience. None of us had experience coming in. And when I was hired, someone had to train me. I loved leasing, but I will tell you, I've told people through the years, I've told people in interviews, I do not like paperwork. Don't give me the admin stuff. I don't mind it if that's my day and I'm just spending a whole day doing admin, but I love people. I'm a talker. I'm a seller. I like to bring people together. I don't like to sit at a desk. Mm-hmm. But I could lease. I had a high closing ratio, but I also had to be resilient in that. Because I would also fail at a lot of things because my paperwork wouldn't be ready for somebody to move in. It's a wonder I had a job still. A wonder I'm here with you today.
But that is a big challenge with a lot of leasing professionals. It has been forever since I've been in the business because you are hiring some people are great at both based on their preferences,
they are.
their strengths, but some are not because some salespeople, leasing people, they are, let's say, a very high I, right? Which is outgoing, people oriented. And they're the polar opposite from someone who is has conscientious preferences, which is tend to be a little bit more reserved, but very good at the details and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And not everybody is great at both. And so it has been an ongoing challenge in that role. And so I think, what some organizations have done is they've been super creative and they have, some people that are on the front line doing the selling and the people stuff, and then other people who are really, really good at the paperwork doing all of that. And what a great partnership, because then you're leveraging the strengths of both people versus trying to, continually be challenged with someone who's just quite honestly always going to struggle in that area. Right.
And that's what in my first job, I had a great leasing person with me and she didn't like being out with the people. So that actually worked out. I paid her to put my files together and she in turn, would let me just get all the leases and we split things. Okay. So it worked out well, but awesome. It's not that I don't know how to do it. It's not that I can't do it. I mean, I create things all the time and do a lot of admin for myself. Sure. That's not what I prefer. And that's not what I'm the best at. Right. So find what your people are best at and be authentic. There's only one you.
Yep.
And 100%. Nobody else is going to be like you.
Exactly.
There is a place for you.
Exactly. Love it. All right. So my next question is leadership comes with intense pressure, right? So, we love people and people make up what we do. We are in the people business, even though we're managing or leading or supporting multi-million-dollar assets. If we're a supplier partner, we're supporting that. If we're in a high-level leadership position, we're supporting the people that are on the front lines, learning and development. And at our core, we're a people business, right? Whether it's the people that work for us or our residents or our clients, it's all about people. With that said, working with people can be one of the most rewarding things. It's why I love what I do, but can also be one of the most challenging things. One of my business coaches and one of his coaches, they say, my biggest problems in business have always had a first name and a last name, right? So it's the biggest reward, but also the biggest challenge. So with that, when leadership comes with intense pressure, how do you personally, Monica, maintain your own personal resilience and prevent burnout?
I would love to say work-life balance, but I don't believe there's such a thing. I will say that I've learned to step away for a few minutes. Sometimes you need 5 minutes. For whatever it means. If it means step out and sit in your car, if it go to another room, just some moments alone to just debrief, for lack of a better word, I guess, debrief yourself and say, okay, where are we? What are we doing now? am I going to make this another 12-hour day? You know, where are we going from here? But I think that you have to be focused and intentional on what you're doing. My word this year, and I got this from Live to Lead, I decided my word was action. And I have put a lot of action in since then. But I would say you have to find your purpose and find your word, what it's going to be. And remember that you are you. And without your healthiness, your well-being, you can't continue to do everything else that everyone else wants you to do. So you've got to take care of yourself. I have been bad about this because I haven't put it on my calendar, but I have learned to take some time for myself. But I would encourage everyone, and myself included, to put that time on your calendar as an appointment. We schedule everything else. You know, I can open my calendar and some days I'm like, how am I going to do all of this? And other days, you know, maybe it's not as full, but go ahead for the next 3 months, go ahead and put your time on the calendar, whether it's a few minutes a day or, you know, several hours a week, however you want to do it. That's how you're going to keep from being so burnt out. Because if you don't take time for yourself, for things you love, your family, your hobbies, then you are definitely going to burn out.
Absolutely. I'm a huge believer in self-care and scheduling. So I tell everybody, if it's not scheduled on my calendar, it's not happening in my life. And so my calendar is both for personal and professional. And blocking out time for yourself, even if it's not just self-care, whatever that self-care looks like to you. You know, is it a massage? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Is it a long walk? Is it an hour to just read your favorite book? What is it? Put it on your calendar. But also from a work perspective, you know, a lot of times we are doing things that others require from us, right? So deadlines, reports, whatever the case may be, because we're serving others, and that's important. But are you also scheduling time on your calendar for those personal and professional development opportunities? Or even if it's, let's say, you know, one of my goals this year is I want to finish writing my book, okay, which is one of my goals this year. Am I scheduling time, dedicated time on my calendar? And then am I committing to keep that time to myself? Because what I see with a lot of the people that I'm coaching is they'll have the best of intentions and schedule time for themselves on their calendar, but then they end up giving that time away to others. When people are like, hey, can you hop on a call at this time? Can you do this? And instead of keeping that commitment to themselves, they give it away. You can't do that, because then you're never going to take action on those priorities, right? Even if it's, hey, that hour I'm giving to myself because I need to go get a massage. And you don't have to ask permission. You also don't have to tell people that that's what you're doing. But you do need to commit to self-care and taking care of you. I agree with that 100%. Okay, so my next question is about women again in business. So women often face additional expectations or pressures in leadership roles. How have you built resilience in the face of these challenges?
Being told no made me build a lot of resilience and just keep going. And early on in my career, that happened a couple of times because I was female. And not to the point that you could really say discrimination, but it definitely was. But being resilient there and just continuing, not letting it make you give up, because it's easy to give up when things are not going the way we want it, or we're not getting the promotion we want, or we're not getting the client that we thought should have been ours and not someone else's. And, you know, someone above did an override and said, no, this person gets that. And, you know, just not giving up, being resilient. As a woman, sometimes it's just really hard. But with me, it's a lot different, because in the last almost 5 years, the things that happened in my life made me look at everything else differently. So the things that were big deals to me before are really not anymore. And you can't tell me no now, because there's no walls for me anymore. And I love that. I love that. I'm very saddened for the reasons I feel this way now, but I love that the little things that I thought were big things are really the tiniest things now.
Yeah.
So I became very resilient to almost everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way, honestly, because I've been through so many major life changes in the last 10 years, right? And it's really forced me to build my resilience. And I've had several people say, oh my God, how did you get through this? Or how did you get through that? And at the end of the day, I'm human, right? We all have emotions and feel the pain of loss or grief and all of the things, and you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. You can't stuff them down. That's extremely unhealthy. So my resiliency doesn't come from ignoring what has happened in my life or not feeling the loss or the pain or the grief or even the anger, right? All of the emotions that come with grief, and it's not linear. But it has come from, once you've felt all the feelings, you really have two choices. Do you want to continue to ruminate over what happened and feel those negative emotions over and over, which to me, that's a terrible place to be, because why would I want to relive something over and over again, right? Or I can choose to say, okay, this happened. Yes, I felt the feelings. Yes, these pieces were difficult, whatever the case may be. But now, what am I going to do with what happened in my life? And I can either be bitter or I can be better. And that you really only have those two choices. Which one are you going to choose? Bitter or better? That's it. And just so I think for me personally, that's helped me build my resiliency. And why I'm so passionate about helping others, because, I think there is sort of a misunderstanding that some people are just born strong. Some people are just born resilient. And I had this conversation with a few people last week. There is an element of that. I'm not going to discount the fact that some people, just based on their DNA, like how their DNA showed up and who their parents were, their ancestors, they might have a tendency to be a little bit more resilient. Okay. So there is an element of that. Also your environment and how you were raised, and were you raised to have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? So those things do play into it. But at the end of the day, resiliency absolutely can be learned. It can be taught. It can be practiced. And it's just like anything else that you do, it's really building a muscle, right?
Yes.
When you go to the gym for the first time, if you haven't been in a while, or maybe you've never worked out, maybe you've never lifted weights. Yeah, the first several times you go, it's going to be really tough. But each time you do it, it's going to get a little bit easier. You're going to get a little bit stronger. Then, for many people, they reach a point where they have amazed themselves at the strength that they have developed and cultivated because they've just consistently worked at it. And the very same thing happens with resilience, right? Little by little, you find that now you're stronger and you're stronger. It gets easier to adopt a growth mindset. It gets easier to sort of talk yourself through the difficult things because you are building that mindset muscle, right?
And relating that resiliency to bodybuilding, I never dreamed that I would be a world champion resiliency person.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have that is what it has been. And I'm sure, we all go through things differently and we feel that way. But I also saw where it would have been easy to just give up on everything and to not be resilient and to just, stay in the bed and just, slump down into your corner and just let the world go past you.
Yeah.
But there's more, and there's a purpose, and you have to live your purpose.
Absolutely. And, what we saw firsthand at Live to Lead, several of the speakers that I invited to come talk, each of them had a story to share, and we all have a story, right? And I think what's really powerful is when we use what has happened to us, our test as our testimony and our mess as our message, because I firmly believe that we are meant to use those things to help the former version of us get through it.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And, and so much is relatable. I'm a big storyteller, and, just being there at Live to Lead, every person that spoke, there was something in each story that I could relate to. It doesn't mean that I went through the same things that they did, but I got something out of each one, each speaker. And I think that as we share our stories, with other people on all the platforms, that it reaches somebody and it makes a difference, and I'll say that day made a big difference in some decisions I was making. And I really appreciate that. I will always remember that. And hopefully going forward, we'll continue to see that all the time from other people.
I love that so much. Mm-hmm. And we've already scheduled our next one, coming back to Atlanta, February 19th and 20th, 2026, back at Modex Studio. So more to come there, and hope that you're able to attend. And you and I should talk about bringing Live to Lead to the Carolinas. I talked to someone else.
I would love that. Mm-hmm.
So let's follow up when we see each other in a few weeks. I really want to brainstorm. Okay, so my last question as we wrap this up, as I mentioned during the opening, obviously today kicks off RPM Careers Week, running today, Monday, April 14th through Friday, April 18th. And so for any future leaders that tune in, either, they're tuning in now or they see this recording, for future leaders considering a career in residential property management, what would you say makes this industry not just a job, but a fulfilling and impactful career?
One thing I love about this industry, we're multifamily, but we truly are multifamily. We are a huge family. I never would have known that. I did not plan to be in this industry. Most people did not. But I would say, if you have the opportunity to at least try this industry, or if you're new in this industry and you're looking to grow, get in the rooms with people smarter than you. I love to be in rooms with people smarter than me. Always have someone, that's a mentor. You'll have mentors and not even realize that was your mentor. And they're like, oh, well, I'm here because of this person. And, but be open to that. Be open to a mentor. Be open to the growth. Be open to learning, because there's so much here, and you don't have to have a college degree. It's great if you do, but you don't have to. You can make a wonderful life for yourself and a wonderful living being in this industry. There are so many ways to go, and it's almost like the sky's the limit. The types of jobs in our industry. I would encourage anyone to get involved in this. It has been wonderful for me. It was wonderful, when I got into this industry and my kids were still home and stuff. It created a life that I did not know that I would have, because there were struggle for a lot of years. I know a lot of people that it's done the same thing with, and I watch people, especially through Entryway, I watch people that we train into this industry that were on the verge of homelessness, living out of their car or living with family. And now, I've got one that's an assistant manager. I've got one that was got the award of Rookie of the Year leasing, and she is killing it right now. Awesome. I've got maintenance guys that are doing amazing, but they never knew there were opportunities out there. So I would say, take the opportunity, get involved, reach out to me. I will help you any way I can.
I love that so much. What key advice would you offer to maybe people who are already in the industry, but they want to become a more successful leader in this space? What advice would you give them?
Invest in yourself. And I say that I've always invested in myself. I came from a really good company early on, but they did not pay for leasing people to go to association events. So after going to one that was paid for as a group, I think it was a trade show, and we enjoyed it so much, I started paying my own way to go, because you can do that. Pay your own way. The national conferences, we have 2 a year that are free. You get a couple other people to go with you, share a room. That's all your cost. Get involved. And again, go to the meetings, get into the rooms, get on committees, get in with people that you normally are not sitting with. Go to a meeting and sit at a table with people you don't know. The more people you know, the more people you engage with, the further your career is going to go.
Absolutely. Your network is your net worth, 100%.
That's right.
Monica, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining me
Yes.
today on
It's
this
been
Monday.
wonderful.
I loved our conversation, and I look forward to having more of them. So
Me too.
have a fantastic week, and congratulations again on your new venture. I'm so excited for
Thank
you
you.
and for all of the people that you are going to positively impact. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good week.
Thanks for tuning in to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview. We will see you soon on the next one. And this has been Monica Begg with your host, Stephanie Puryear-Helling. Make it a great day.